Okay, I'm preparing here. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, all right. So welcome to week 3 of the semester. Before we start, any questions for me, especially about the quiz? Anything that any concerns, any ideas, anything that you need to ask? Just unmute yourself and talk.
I had a question about the textbook.
Yeah.
So my textbook didn't match up with the textbook that you put in for a PDF, but I bought the textbook off of like the site. Is that an issue?
I don't think so. Is that what is it that does not match? The cover, is it still a 3rd edition?
Yeah, it's all the same edition. It's just the
Can you
actual reading.
would you be able to quickly show the front here, or just email me a picture? It should be okay.
Yeah, I can go grab it real fast.
Okay. And I think someone else. Any other questions meanwhile?
So last week's activity in class, do you want us to submit it as it is or like finish it?
As is, whatever you have, just submit it. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Don't have to finish it.
I think I have the same question. So I don't know if he was talking about the semiotic analysis, but we're still handing that in, right?
You are handing it in. Please hand it in by today. Just, you don't have to add anything in addition to what you did in class. So you submit whatever you had time to do in class. It's part of your participation. So I'm not expecting you to do anything in addition to what you did.
Thank you.
So do we submit it as a group or just or do we need to submit it by ourselves too?
You submit whatever file that you have individually. So if you it could be the same, exactly the same file, but you just make copies and submit it from yourself. If you didn't, it's okay as well, as long as it has your names on the front, we will mark you.
Like Dr. Maslow said, please put like everyone's names on it. It makes it a lot easier to grade if you put like all of your group members' names on top.
Yeah, Jen did a lot of the first assignment, right? So yeah, it does help a lot. So all the names.
And where is the turn-in box on that?
It is in week 2. When I go into Canvas, I will show that again. It says semiotic analysis, and you open it up, but it should be in week 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the textbook that I have.
Lauren? Yeah, that's exactly it. That's actually exactly the same, I think, that I had there. Okay, so you've got, yeah, that's the good one. That's the right one. As long as you have, there are I think right now they're using 3E. It doesn't matter. As long as you have edition 3 of any kind, we're good. Okay, any other questions? The test, any comments on the quiz? Anything you want me to do differently for this one? that is coming up.
Yeah, I just have one quick note. Could there be an option to like be able to go back? Because like on the first question I accidentally misclicked, but there was no way for me to go back.
Yeah, okay, I will see if I can do that. Yep.
Thanks.
This may be kind of a dumb question, but is there any other alternatives we can use to study for the quiz to do better? Because like some of the questions are like a little hard, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, the textbook is the main thing, and and so in my experience, and I've been teaching this course for in many iterations online and in person. What I do see is that people get much better at taking those quizzes as time goes on. You just kind of get used to them. So this is, I know it doesn't help you right now, but just kind of trust me. That's why I told you that I'm going to drop the first two, or any two lower ones, because that's how it works. The other thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start posting the list of terms that you need to know. It's quite a bit for each of the quizzes, but quizzes do make a lot of use of terminology. So I'm going to list the terms for you. So starting from this week, I will just post on Canvas a list of terms. And for week, I was just looking at the chapter. For the chapter 2, there are probably about 15. Some of them are very, very easy, and we're going to go over them. Some of them a little harder, and you'll have to kind of look into textbook for it. So that may help. Other than that, if you want to kind of talk to me during my office hours, show me what you're doing, or to Jen or Tommy, that would work as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I've got the chat here. I can't hear you. I don't know. Most people do, right? You can hear me. Yes. So, Jaylene, I don't know what to tell you. Anybody else? Can if you cannot hear me, can you quickly put it in the chat? All right. Okay. Jaylene, my only suggestion that works for me sometimes, if I leave the meeting and join the meeting. Okay, otherwise it's the recording is your best option. Yeah, try leaving and rejoining. All right, okay, so let's work through our material. So this is, I emailed you kind of a small homework. I'm going to, at the end of this session, I'm going to go over it and explain to you what I want you to do for next time. And next time we're going to do like a more group work. For today, mainly, I'm going to go over PowerPoint and kind of stress the structure and kind of help you to maybe do a little bit better on the next quiz. I saw that most people did pretty well. There were people who, that based on the mark, seemed like they were kind of not just trying and not necessarily kind of getting into.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you at all. I just see you talking and I don't know like what to do. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Can you hear me now? Because all of a sudden you got in. Like everyone else can hear.
I can hear you just fine. I don't know.
And we can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear anyone.
Try to. Try to leave the meeting and get rid of the headphones.
I tried. I've left and came back like 3 times. I tried unplugging my headphones, nothing. It says I'm connected to the audio, nothing will work.
It's being recorded. I'm
So should I
sorry.
just leave? Because like,
You're
I don't want to
welcome
like
to.
sit
What
here
I
and
would
just stare at
do.
you and not be able to hear it.
I know it's just.
Okay, I'll just watch the recording, I guess, since that's what everyone's suggesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Canvas support. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, sorry, gosh. It is what it is, I guess. Okay, so we're going to look at the PowerPoint. And I've changed it a little bit since last time, since I updated it this morning. All right, okay. So our chapter for this week is called Viewers Make Meaning. And essentially we're talking about how the meaning is made between the creator and the author. How is meaning being created, how is meaning being consumed, and how it's being negotiated, right? So this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to try to do presenter view. So we're looking at how viewers interpret or experience the image, the context in this image is seen. Sometimes when I teach this course, I ask people to look at the video, watch the video called Ways of Seeing. If you've taken other of my courses, you may have watched that as well, but a very old it's an older video, and by John Berger, who is a very, very interesting and very smart art historian. And he talks about the idea of the context. So imagine we don't watch TV as much and don't change the channels, but imagine you are changing the channels, right? So you're watching TV and you're flipping through the channels. So that context of flipping channels is already something that provide different context to the image that you're going to see. So the meaning that you create is different if you're just seeing an art piece at home on TV, or go to a museum and see it in a museum. So this is the context that I mean, situating it in your life and institutionally as well. So this is my plan for the week. Today we're going to talk about viewers and producers, how aesthetic and taste are formed. We're going to talk a little bit about collecting, display, and institutional critique. And then we're going to finish with encoding and decoding. And the whole homework is for that. And then next time we're going to look at the reception and audience, and then appropriation, which I'm sure all of you at least have an idea of, and what is reappropriation, etc. So I'm going to start with very briefly going through the idea of ideology, and we've talked about that. So I'm not going to go too much into that. I just want to quickly, for us to understand that. We talked about ideology in an old old school way of thinking, like Karl Marx, who talks about ideology as false consciousness. Essentially, it's like the society makes us believe into something, it brainwashes us into something that is not that good for us. All right, so Karl Marx says that, you know, the bourgeoisie, the middle classes, the wealthy people brainwash proletariat into working, never taking a break, and thinking that it's good for them because they need that money to just support themselves. So, and people are oppressed because of the ideology. This is the older way of thinking. Then we will see a lot of French men in this class smoking. We saw Ronald Barthes, he was smoking. We see Althusser, who is also smoking, kind of like get used to that. That's like mid-century French men for you. So he always, Pierre Althusser, in spite of my jokes, is a really important philosopher. And he mainly upholds the idea of Marxism, but he also develops that. He eventually becomes professor of philosophy, and he kind of thinks about ideology in a different way. He says, okay, ideology is not necessarily false consciousness. Ideology is what we live in. We can't really live outside of the ideology. We're all influenced by that. And ideology is not one thing. We don't live in the, like I did in Soviet Union, where there's only one program of the party. And even then we created our own understanding. Especially in democratic societies, we have everything, all kinds of competing ideas that influence us. So without ideology, we would have no means of thinking of reality. So ideology is not necessarily negative. It just is. It is something that it's a set of ideas that influences us, and this is how we understand our reality. So this is Althusser, and this is how he thinks about that. So if we have that kind of neutral type of ideology, it is manifests itself through various images, through various texts, through various ways of getting us to think about certain things. So image or sign that we talked about last week ad nauseam, right? The sign is something that expresses for us that ideology. Okay, so how do signs or images or shows or art or anything else, how does that actually make us believe in particular thing? That process of making us subscribe under a particular idea is called interpellation. So it refers to a process by which we are constructed by the ideologies that speak to us every day through language and images. So I've got here two really kind of interesting examples, visual examples. They come again from two completely different sides of the wall, but they do the same thing. So let me show you this. This is a US Army recruitment poster from 1917. So this is literal interpellation. This is calls for you. I want you for US Army, right? It's like, this is, we call it interpellation, we call it brainwashing, we can call it whatever. It's really easy to understand. And the same thing happens in 1920, so slightly later, and on the other side, and that's a Soviet poster, have you enlisted in the army, by Dmitry Moore, 1920s. So in the writing in Russian is exactly that, have you enlisted in the army. So the same thing, have you, it's literal calls on us. And literal meaning of interpellation is to call on someone, kind of say, hey, to hail and say, stop, do this, do that. Okay. So that's interpellation. But we have here Emma Stone advertising for us a beautiful Revlon lipstick, or not beautiful, the Revlon lipstick, doesn't matter. And that is also an interpolation. It just allows us to think of images as the sites where desire and power negotiated. So when we, and I'm sure you even if I didn't explain that to you, it would be pretty easy to kind of to get to understand. She is someone that we tend to like or respect or pay attention to. She's attractive. She has kind of interesting personality maybe, and she advertises lipstick. So there are a number of meanings here that interpolate us into ideology of consumption, say. And we can go and look at the signs and signify and signified and also how it happens and etc. and do various readings. But essentially we are, through these images, we become part of ideology. Questions, comments before we continue on? So, you know, you look at Emma Stone here and you say, you know what, Emma Stone, I don't like lipstick. I don't like you, Emma Stone. I'm not interested in that. So, no. So we're still caught up. What is it about it that still makes us be caught up in the images? Like, I'm showing you this, and even if you have never used lipstick in your life and never seen a film with Emma Stone in your life, you still understand more or less, pretty good, probably have a decent understanding of what is it that we're looking for and what it wants you to do. And you can say yes or no, etc. So how does that happen? How does that happen? So the next thing I want to talk about is essentially kind of the idea of authorship and producers. And this is where I want to start, and I don't have slide for that, so just listen. In the modern period, from about 19th century up to probably around 1960s or 1970s, people in the modern period, the idea of the authorship was normally very much predetermined by individual, which means that modernity was very concentrated on the role of individual in the society. So author, usually we would see a lot of kind of authors, a lot of people who produce something by themselves. That had changed from 1970s and 1980s, and we see a lot more collaborations, and collaborations are everywhere. In art, in the shows, in music production, in the films, we see a lot more kind of that idea of making things together on one hand. And on the other hand, we're seeing blurring of the idea of the authorship altogether. So our friend, Roland Barthes, we talked about the myth and all this kind of interpretations of the past, to remember. He also wrote a book in 1967 called The Death of the Author. And he doesn't mean just one, he doesn't mean 10, he says that the author had died, like the idea of the author is dead. Why? Because more and more, it's not the author that creates the meaning of the artwork, but the viewer, the director, there's someone who helps to produce a movie, for example, and get it out there. That idea of I'm a single artistic genius who can make this wonderful, work of art. I am the Pablo Picasso. I am Vincent van Gogh. I am, help me here, I don't know, Leo Tolstoy, whoever that is. It's gone. It's like nobody writes that way. Nobody produces anything individually anymore. viewers and readers become authors as well. And well, you know more better than me probably who helped with this process, like nobody, no one's business. The internet. You are young enough not to remember the world without internet, right? But before that, we could not react to everything with comments. We can't even now because people are so mean. A lot of places disable comments. But we generally look at YouTube. We can actually put anything. Anybody can become an author. So that definitely changes that dichotomy. Important dichotomy between the author and the producer and the viewer. Completely, that changes that completely. So the Barth says it's a myth that the author is the primary producer of the text to meaning. The birth of the reader must be ransomed by the death of the author. And you know, it's Barth. He likes this kind of wonderful expressions or sentences that kind of all encompassing, and I love them too. Why not? But in essence, and nothing like that actually happens that drastically and that completely. It's not that, you know, the reader was born, author dies, or anything like that. We're still kind of creating that and thinking about that. Okay, so imagine for yourself this situation. You have come to an exhibition or to, like, you went to a movie with a friend. You're sitting in the movie theater, you are loving that movie. You are taking it in, you are enjoying it so much. The movie is over, you turn around to your friend, and apparently your friend hated this movie. Completely and totally hated it. You're of course disappointed because you cannot, like I would be disappointed, I cannot share my enthusiasm for the film, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that we all have different tastes and we have different ideas of what is aesthetic enjoyment. Why do we like certain things? Why we don't like certain things? So I'm going to move now from ideology and kind of the negotiation between the author and the viewer into kind of the idea of, like, why do we enjoy certain things? Why do I have that personally? I love Grey's Anatomy, love it. Like, that's my guilty pleasure. Don't judge me, please. I'm sure, and at the same time, I love like those French intellectual films as well. So what is it about certain things that makes us enjoy them and makes us dislike some others? And how did we form the taste, right? So I'm going to start with showing you a very traditional mid-20th century approach. And then I want to talk about kind of how that approach was completely kind of taken down and dismantled, right? So let me introduce you to, if you're taking art history classes from like 20th century, you may know this dude. If you didn't, meet Clement Greenberg, the most irritating art critic of the 20th century, as far as I'm concerned. The most haughty and at the same time very smart person who never created any art, but criticized absolutely everything that he saw. And criticize, I didn't mean saying only bad, but also good. He created careers, he took down careers, he was the most influential critic. So here is what Clement Greenberg, here is why Clement Greenberg is so important for us. Clement Greenberg says that essentially some people have amazing taste and some people have horrible taste. So, and he writes about that in an article called Avant-Garde and Kitsch. Okay. Anybody want to define kitsch? Have you heard this word? Can you just give us like a quick example of what could that be?
Isn't it like could also be called like tacky or something like that?
Absolutely, yes. Kitsch is something that is tacky, that is lowbrow, that is kind of like popular now. We sometimes think about it as kind of popular. So in the 19th century, and especially in the 20th century, people thought about kitsch as something that belongs to working class, proletariat, people who don't have education and don't understand contemporary art. So here I've got for you, you don't need to remember that, just kind of look at that. This is a painting by Matisse, and this is just kind of like a pinup. So that exemplifies Clement Greenberg. He says, this is art, this is avant-garde, innovative art, and this is kitsch. Everybody understands that. It has like, it appeals to everyone. This, you need education, and you need refinement, and you need kind of really develop your taste to understand that. So then this is kind of where what he is essentially saying, that this class-based notion of taste as discriminating skill. So he thinks about taste as something where you discriminate. Skill presents as something that is natural to the connoisseur rather than skill learned through a particular social and educational context. So what does that mean? Essentially, he says, listen, you either have good taste or you do not. And we nowadays say, no, you can develop taste if you wanted to, and any taste is basically decent taste. It just depends where you grew up, how you see things. Everybody discriminates, but everybody discriminates differently. Okay, then, so I'm going to just, for the fun of it, show you a couple of images that are kind of, this is what Clement Greenberg would call definitely kitsch. This cute cat that looks like, you know, older widow. This is the art, but it's art of the, for kind of with one common denominator. It is very skilled art, but not necessarily art that we kind of have to think a lot to understand. This is an example of contemporary kitsch. Well, and I'm not against that. This is great, that's cute. But this is kind of, this is what we normally think is maybe tacky. This is just something that I cannot stop smiling about. This is a sculpture created for Melania Trump in her native city. And it actually is intended to be like a tribute, not a parody. But more importantly, we have to understand how we get to see something like that, which you don't need to remember. An abstract art, for example, how do we conceptualize? Why some of us enjoy it and some of us really do not, or something like that when you go to an exhibition. So for that, we are going to meet another Frenchman, not smoking this time, Pierre Bourdieu from he was born in 1930, longish life, 2002, he passed away. In his 1979 work, La Distinction, the distinction, he essentially asks, how is our upbringing helps us to navigate everything? So Bourdieu is a sociologist, right? So the sociologist is someone who takes society as their lab. He doesn't think about ideas first. He designs those questionnaires and goes for it. And this is what he figured out. he says that we have 4 forms of capital when we function in society. Obviously, there is economic. We never doubted that. But there's also cultural, so knowledge, taste, cultural disposition, social, family, networks, relationships, symbolic, honors, reputation. Altogether, if we have all 4, we feel that we're successful in the society, and most people feel that they are successful. So how does that work for art? What he started doing is he designed a questionnaire and he went to museums and he asked people, of course with his assistants, people were filling out questionnaires, and essentially if they were in museum looking at things by themselves, without a guide, without a group, in most cases, that meant that they've been going to museums since their childhood. And their parents were also at least somewhat interested in art. If the people were coming to museum as part of the group, usually that meant that they were introduced to art somewhat later, and they were not they didn't feel as free and self-assured in museums. So based on that, he looks at this and at the idea of taste, and he says, listen, taste is not something you're born with. Taste is something that you acquire. And you acquire it from your family, mainly. So from that, he also develops this wonderful and weird word called habitus. And habitus is essentially the idea of the taste in art or anything. Art means not only visual art, but theater and literature and music and everything is related to our profession, to our class status, and to our educational level. Now, very important. Bourdieu is in France. In the United States and in North America, we're slightly more relaxed about it, and that unification between high and low had happened earlier in North America than it did in Europe. So just so you understand. But overall, it still works. It works every time. The taste and our understanding and consumption of images is based on our education level, on our class, on our profession, etc., and where we are in society. And that helps us, and that also allowed for us to then, for one very interesting artist and a very interesting art movement, sorry, I'm making noise here, to emerge. Okay, questions, comments before I continue? So far, so good. Okay, so again, why am I doing this? Why am I talking, coming from Bourdieu, from the idea of the taste to Andy Warhol? Because it is at the same time frame, same time period, 1960s, 1970s, that we see change in the taste and change in the understanding of consumption and art. This, as we later going to learn more, and we're going to talk about this time period as postmodernism, kind of that time period where modernism kind of falls apart a little bit. All right. I don't have a poll here, but anybody can just quickly tell me if they like Andy Warhol or don't like, if you've seen a piece or you remember a piece that you like? Anyone? Come on, come on. I'm not moving until someone talks to me.
I love Andy Warhol.
Okay, thank you. You love Andy Warhol. Can you tell me your name? I cannot see you.
Teresa.
Teresa. Okay, is there a particular piece that you like?
I saw some of his work at the MoMA. I don't remember what it was, but I really liked it.
Okay, you like his piece in the MoMA, pieces in the MoMA. Anybody else? Anyone does not like Andy Warhol, like thinks he's trash?
I mean, I don't think he's trash, but I'm not a fan. Like,
You're not a fan.
Particularly interesting about him that I like.
Okay, so you don't think he's that interesting. Okay, thank you.
I like Andy Warhol. I like his like the maintaining the solid colors, like the yellow, and it kind of all meshes in together. And I feel like he does a really good job with contrasting certain colors together to make it like more of a cohesive piece of art.
Interesting. Okay, so you like how he juxtaposes and how he combines colors to create a work of art.
Yeah, I feel like he can make any piece of art look very well if he just meshes the colors together. I know he has some pieces of art that don't have like the bold colors like the one that you show on the screen, but I feel like the way he meshes the colors together in this piece, like I don't know, it's good to catch the eye.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the goal here. Yeah, to catch the eye. So the reason I'm choosing Andy Warhol is because, of course, he's an icon. He's a cultural icon for sure in the United States. Also because I think he got the idea of the media more than anybody of his generation. And I mean, there are a lot of people now, and media changed, of course, but he died in 1987, a while ago, and he was the first that actually created not only art but also his own brand. He's also his own persona, because Andy Warhol, in addition to being Andy Warhol artist, which he was a talented artist, he also was a production, right? He was the person that creates art that we all know. So let me just, what I'm going to do is give fairly quick kind of like once over, kind of cover some of the most important issues, and I will stress that idea of the kind of taste, production of taste, and combination of the high and low. So born in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania to a Slovak family who came from Czechoslovakia, so Eastern European, died in '87 in New York City. Studied in the art schools of fine art. So one of the things that kind of interesting about Warhol is he comes from a very poor immigrant working class family, and he is completely mesmerized by glamour. And his whole life is about kind of being next to people who are glamorous. And then eventually he becomes the epitome of glamour himself. But he is really comes from a very, very low class, very kind of family that doesn't know much about art. So, and kind of just by being really excited about it, he kind of creates himself. So I don't know if it's that important, but I thought it would. These are his kind of photographic self-portraits. As he got older, he got bald, but he hated that. So he wore wigs. He had an insane amount of wigs, and he had them styled quite often. So these are his, this is him in a wig in different styles. This is a self-portrait from 1960. I will stop with self-portraits in a second. I swear, just one more from 1967. And I want to read you this. So this is what he says. If you want to know all about Andy Warhol, just look at the surface of my paintings and films and me, and there I am. There is nothing behind it. Okay, so you have to understand that prior to him creating art, the entire idea was to see behind the surface. In Renaissance, we look at art that is three-dimensional. We look at those beautiful portraits that, say, Rembrandt did, or people in the 19th century did. It's all about looking behind the surface, interpreting things. And all of a sudden, Andy Warhol says, no, we're only going to look at the surface. We're only going to look at something that is right there, something that is apparent, which is part of popular culture. This is kitsch. The kitsch is about creating these very, very simple paintings, images, writing, or whatever it is. So he was trained as a commercial artist. He likes fashion, and he started literally when he came to New York. He was living in this very poor apartment and would go to one coffee shop and just sit there and create these shoes. And he eventually had an exhibition in this coffee shop of the shoes, and kind of started working for his, got clients from there, and he started. So these are just other examples. So what he started doing is he started creating brands for people, and that included the creating images, but also overall kind of setting up. So a store would hire him, and he would set up their visual display. And more than anything, Andy Warhol wanted and liked money, and he doesn't make any kind of any qualms about it. He says, I like roll of bills. I love money. This is what I want. I'm a good artist, and I deserve to be paid. So one of the techniques, this is important. One of the techniques that he used, and this is kind of one of the ways that he's famous, was silk screening. So he is a talented and capable painter, and that's why I'm showing you this. This is a drawing, and this is a good drawing, really. It's a really good, realistic drawing. But as an artist, he was so fascinated with this idea of machinery, kind of like printing, almost juxtaposing of handmade things, and then technology, that most of the art that we like, that Andy Warhol produced, those are silk screens. So it's a technique that uses woven mesh to support in-blocking stencils. So essentially, you create a stencil, and you put it through this mesh frame, and you do it several times with different colors, and you create, and you end up with an image. And as someone so aptly just said, that's how he produced those wonderful color images. So as many of these. And he starts, so Andy Warhol is interested in silk screening, and he slowly makes enough money to rent a large studio. And this is the studio, this is Andy Warhol working with his assistant in the studio. And the studio is on Manhattan. It's a large space, and he starts calling it the factory. And if you're interested, there is a movie called The Factory Girl, which kind of details what was going on in the factory. And what was going on were a lot of art production, a lot of porn, and a lot of drug use. And all of that was kind of was going on simultaneously. And from time to time, his mother came to visit, and all that except art production would stop, and the mother would be be entertained. But overall, he created not only art, but he created that lifestyle that was really interesting, and really people were envious and wanted to be part of. Okay, so let's look at this. And I'm sorry, it's slightly close, but I'm going to show you that. So this is 32 Campbell soup cans from 1961-62. It's acrylic on canvas. So this is not a silk screen, and this is important. And look carefully at the image, because each of these images is painted separately and framed separately. And I'm going to show you how it was installed. Okay. So he does a lot of repetitions of those images. Why? Why is he interested in Campbell soup? Why is he creating that entire exhibition of something that is so mundane? There are different soups here. Look, clam chowder, black bean, vegetable, chili beef, whatever. But they're all very, very similar. And all of them are exhibited in a museum, in a gallery. All of them are similar, and all of them are art. And that's the important part. So here we have, I'm gonna go back. Here we have Andy Warhol taking something that is so mundane, so everyday, so blah, soup, and painting it. So you can go and buy a can of this for, I don't know, 50 cents probably at that time, and all of a sudden becomes a work of art that you cannot buy for 50 cents anymore. Because even those, when he was just starting, even those shoes, these he sold for $25 each, handmade. So these would be very expensive. So you see, normally art would go this way. You would take something that is, say, landscape, it's in nature, it's something you see, and you create a work of art. And that work of art becomes very expensive. But then we create reproductions, and they're cheaper and cheaper. Here, he takes something that is exceptionally cheap, and he reproduces it to make it very, very expensive. So he's playing with this high and low. He creates art that is very, that is cost a lot of money, but based basically on nothing in popular culture. And in doing that, he asks, like, what are we valuing here? What is the taste? Where is the taste? So this is the 210 Coke bottles. So this is what he said at some point. And I'm going to paraphrase because I've got it slightly closed. Everybody can drink Coke, everyone. A president of the United States and I can drink Coke. It still costs the same amount of money, 20 cents for a bottle of Coke. And Coke is good, and it's the same for me and for president. So he sees those commercial products as like huge equalizers. Kind of, they could be consumed by everyone in the same way. Now, I want you to see and tell me, like, look at this and tell me what you think about are they all the same? The bottles, the way he portrays them, are they all the same?
No, they're not the same at all, actually. I don't even see one that looks the exact same.
Okay.
All different shades, and there's different like reflection on them and whatnot.
Great. Okay, what's your name?
Justin Hammond.
Justin, thank you. Okay, yeah, absolutely. It's hard to see the two the same. They are very, very, they are almost kind of, the impression is the same, but they are very different. So, and now I want you to think for a second. I want you to think, when was the last time you actually read the actual newspaper? Not online, but in real life, like took a newspaper. And nowadays, newspaper printing is very sophisticated. So I don't expect you even to have that same experience. Now, when Andy Warhol in 1960s was around, you would take newspaper, and very often the print quality will be very different from copy to copy. Sometimes you see that, sometimes you see things that are printed very clearly, and sometimes they're faded, and sometimes they're too dark, and sometimes they're too light. So this is the kind of the effect that Warhol is trying to repeat in his art here. He's saying that my art is so mechanical, it is almost like a newspaper. It is as democratic and as cheap. So really kind of I'm going popular. So and then then we're going to see him doing something even, well, as you can see, sinister. So the other thing that Warhol is interested in addition to kind of mass production, is the idea of the disaster. So this is an ambulance disaster. Remember last weeks we were talking about Ouija and how he hunted those kind of like occurrences and for the news. Andy Warhol doesn't. He uses these from the photographs from newspapers. But this is what he does. Do you see how this ambulance disaster is photographed 3 times? And every time it is slightly less precise. This is the bigger one, and then the 2 kind of smaller images. And I don't want to show you this, but I'm going to show you this one. The black and white disaster. This is what you say. He says, sorry. The more you look at the same exact thing, the more the meaning goes away and the better and emptier you feel. He's being really here, really sarcastic and sinister. But essentially he says that it's like something happens and it's everywhere in the news, right? Right, transmediation, what we talked about, like transmediation. And you see it again and again and again. And what happens? What happens when we see the same thing on the news, as sad as it is, again and again and again? Do we react the same way every time?
You get desensitized to it.
Yes, thank you. You get desensitized. So we are in 1960s. Andy Warhol just picks up on that because this is the time when, you know, right after, like not right after, but after World War II, there's so many kind of media outlets, and this is what he's seeing, and this is what he picks up, and he makes us think about it. So he does kind of similar thing with the electric chair from 1964. So he's, and this is where Andy Warhol is really interesting for me in particular, because I don't think he actually wants us to criticize anything. He just kind of, he's like a medical doctor. He just operates on our understanding of the media. He just shows us what it is. And he doesn't want to change anything. He's not a social revolutionary that way. So this is electrical chair. And he looks at that and he does a black and white. And then he says, so will our perception or our understanding changed if I show it in different colors? Would the pink look better or more sinister or weirder? And he essentially kind of shows us that and makes us wonder. So this is the social, this is the disaster series. And then of course there is Andy Warhol and his total preoccupation again with the media and the main media icon of the time, Marilyn Monroe. In 1962, she kills herself. Unfortunately, she's depressed. She takes 40 barbiturate sleeping pills and she overdosed and she passes away. And Andy Warhol creates a series of works that essentially pick up on Marilyn Monroe as being this icon of society and how we respond to her. So this is Marilyn Monroe from 1962. Most of the works, I'm going to show you the three and then we're going to talk about them. So this is the kind of colorful nine ones. This is the kind of one-off from, again, silk screen. All of these are silk screens. And then the Monroe diptych. So he creates them all within the span of a couple of months. He sells them, they sell really well. But he essentially, again, he's using different colors and he's using the silk screen. So he takes away almost takes away the idea of the authorship, right? He's the author, but he's also, it's mediated through technology. And similar to the disaster series and the bottles of Coke, here we have the diptych. Anybody, what is the diptych? From, if we talk about like historical art, anybody had taken medieval, Renaissance, just read about it? What is diptych?
Well, I know that a diptych is when two pictures are shown like side by side.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so two pictures showed side by side. Usually, diptych or triptych is usually created for religious purposes. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance and Baroque, those were created as altarpieces, and sometimes they would be open and sometimes they would be closed depending on the day of the week, and et cetera, but they essentially were part of the decoration, part of the church. So they have these religious connotations for us. So when Andy Warhol calls his work, that work, Monroe diptych, he says he wants to venerate her, because diptych usually would have either Jesus or Virgin Mary. It's a Roman Catholic thing. You have saints on the diptych. So he's essentially saying, she's our icon, she's almost a saint in the society. At the same time, he is completely rubbing it in our face, because he creates so many faces of Marilyn Monroe. And similar to what we talked about when we talked about the bottles of Coke, as you can see here, they are not the same. Can you see that? They are black and white, they're color, but there is one, the second from the left on the black and white side, that is so much darker. So he imitates how the newspapers would be showing her, and he's asking us, how far can I go for you to still recognize that it's a Marilyn Monroe? It's almost becomes an outline, a blotch of color, and we still think about her as Marilyn. So this is the margins of our perception. And he kind of does the same thing for the week that was for Jackie Kennedy after JFK was assassinated. Okay, questions, comments, ideas on that? So let me show you what I want you to do for Thursday. First here and then Canvas. Okay, so this is what I'm actually emailed you today. I'm introducing you to, and take notes, because this is the point here, to how we consume messages now as everyone. So Stuart Hall, who is a British theorist, says that when we understand something, we create meaning in 3 ways. So think about any ad. Remember my Emma Stone Revlon ad at the beginning that I showed you? Let's think about that quickly, like as an example. So there's the first one is dominant hegemonic reading. So in the case of Revlon, Emma Stone, essentially the ad says, buy Revlon lipstick of these colors. It's fashionable, it's great, and you're gonna look like Emma Stone. And you go, yes, yes, yes. And that's that. So this is dominant reading. Negotiated reading is when you are like, in case of Emma Stone, you're like, I don't know why you're telling me that. There are other good lipsticks, and I don't even know if Emma Stone is that beautiful. And I know you're trying to get me to buy because you think I want to look like Emma Stone, but Revlon is a decent company, and I still need lipstick this season. The oppositional meaning is when you either completely disagree with what it does. This image, for example, you say, forget that. These lipstick are awful. I don't understand why society makes us want to use them anyways. And Emma Stone is really not a nice person. That's it, I'm out. Or you engage with the image, but change it completely. Like you create a parody of the image or a song or something like that. So these are the 3 ways that we negotiate, that we create meaning. So I have a link here to the video. It's about 6-7 minutes that kind of goes over that Stuart Hall's theory again, to remind you that. I want you to watch this. And then I want you to find an example of an ad or any image, preferably an ad or a show. And for the same ad or for the same show, give a dominant, hegemonic, a negotiated, and a positional reading. So explain how these 3 readings would work for one ad or one show. Do it for yourself. On Thursday, I'm going to make you kind of put you into breakout rooms so you can talk to each other and kind of create like overall kind of assignment out of your notes and your examples. Questions?
So by a show, do you mean just like any TV show?
Yeah, any TV show, preferably if you can think about something like a 1 episode or maybe 1 part of a show would be better, because then you can explain.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we're discussing this with our breakout rooms. Are we going to write it down and then submit it on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we're gonna go and kind of look at the other material from chapter 2 as well. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to see if I can actually show you a couple other things on Canvas that I want you to do. Can you see my Canvas? No? Okay. Can you see it now? Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so we are in week 3 in chapter 2. So here's what I want you to do. We said that you're going to look at the, read the chapter always and look at the PowerPoint. here I have the video that I want you to do, the Stewart Hall reception theory. That's the homework. Also, if you can please watch example of institutional critique for next time. In addition to everything else, it is kind of hilarious, also weird, but hilarious, trust me. Now, with our focus is pop art, and we talked about Andy Warhol. So watch this, what is pop art? It's very short. It just gives you a kind of overview of the movement. And then as much as possible, watch for me Jeff Koons, because he's the contemporary artist that continues the idea of pop. And he's really interesting because he really kind of creates works and lets people figure out what they mean and kind of relate to them in different ways. So this is what I really want you to do. Next time, I'm also going to go over the assignment that is due on October 1st. Okay, questions? Anything else? All right, so there is no makeup for this class. The assignment has been emailed. We're preparing for the discussion next time, and have a wonderful night, and I will see you on Thursday. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.